The fantasy versus reality. It's always something which has intrigued me with alcoholism. Because even after a spell of sobriety, you think, I'm going to have a couple of drinks and I'll be alright. And many times I've planned holidays and such like in the past. And I was in the police, took extra annual leave, maybe made 3 weeks of it. And the fantasy was and we did it, to drive through Europe, a few stops in Paris and further down, Switzerland, Austria, beautiful countries as you know, and over a few weeks by the Italian lakes, long before sort of Lake Como, Lake Garda became more touristy, should we say. And have some nice lunches out, have some nice dinners out, and we'll travel to Venice, and we got the opera and Verona, all this sort of thing, which we did, but it was a disaster. Because as soon as I finished work, I remember one particular one, was I finished night duty, 6:30, drove to Epping. My parents were there because they were looking after the dog. Got in the car and I was dying for a drink, as it always was after every shift, whether it was in the morning, afternoon or night. And a couple of drinks in the car, so obviously she had to drive. I was so tired after nights, and then we got this hotel in Paris, and all I wanted to do was drink, which I did. I got into such a mess I couldn't drive the next day either. And the reality of it started to kick in even then. We tried this multiple times, and after a day or so, I sorted myself up a little bit. I could do a bit of driving, eventually got to Italy. Used to go to these Eurocamp things, and the first thing I was interested in before we even got there was to go to a big Carrefour, big supermarket, and get the car loaded up with booze. Any decent sort of premium lager would do me. Head back and have barbecues and all that, and put some music on, this and the other. It never really happened like that, because I was always hungover. I was drinking too much, and then I used to find the bar on the campsite and hit that. And I remember going one day, about 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd run out of beer. I'd been drinking all night, more or less. It's such a bad hangover. I think I was having withdrawals then, years ago. I went to the camp shop and I bought some beer, and I didn't have a bottle opener. And I was desperate to get a bottle opener. Some young kids, some hitchhiker gave me a bottle opener. I was like, took the beer into the shower block, and I was drinking lager at 8:30 in the morning. We were supposed to be having this dream holiday. We were going to travel here, there and everywhere. And it was a nightmare, the whole thing. We did manage to get to Venice, we did manage to get the opera in Verona, but it wasn't enjoyable. It was all a bit of a struggle. And so you sort of settle yourself into a bit of orgy-bargy, a few arguments, a few barbecues. And for 3 weeks it was okay-ish. And then it was the long drive home, wasn't it? Which always ended in bloody disaster. And I remember thinking, wow, I've really ramped these credit cards up. I had some cash, and I think it was Italian lira then, so that shows you how long ago it was. And started to drive back. I had a full tank of diesel. I had a Land Rover Discovery then, and it was a 3-door version. And we started to drive back, and I felt really rough on the motorways on the way back, and I said, I'm going to have to pull in. So pulled in, she started to drive, the usual arguments, this and that, and I felt so anxious. I started to think, well, I need to get out this passenger door. Driving 80 miles an hour on these bloody roads. And this wave of, I want to get out of the car. Panic attacks, all this sort of thing. So I just suddenly got in the back of the car, because I knew I couldn't get out. It should be in the 3-door, I was in the back. And I got, I feel safe now. I had a few more drinks, feel safe. But I remember, I thought, these credit cards are getting quite near the limit. I had some cash, different currencies. I pulled into a garage in Northern Italy. Quite a remote garage, the place where there's no one with only one tooth, and then if something goes wrong, there's 10 people come out the back. Well, I filled the car up, I think with a Bartley card or something. It got rejected, and it was a Sunday. I forget it was a Sunday, and she looked at me blankly. In the village there was no Italian, there was no English speakers really. There was only in the sort of main towns people would speak English, and this guy came from behind. He must have noted to her, what's the problem? There was another credit card out. That got rejected. I said, I better go to the car. He followed me to the car, and I said to my ex-wife, I need the other card. I think I had about 3 or 4 cards at the time. That got rejected. Jesus, these have all been ramped up because I used to hide the statements. I never took much notice of the bank statements, you see, or the credit card statements. And then about 4 or 5 people appeared, and I felt quite, well, under threat here. But at the time I was still in the police, I calmed myself, but not with 4 or 5 Italian guys shouting and screaming. I went back to the car and had some cash, and they took a lot more cash than really the fuel was worth. And that was all the cash we had. So all the credit cards built up, and the cash had gone. So I thought, wow, this is really bad, this. So I suggested Sunday afternoon we'll go to a police station. We got to Switzerland, went to Geneva, and I'll never forget that Sunday afternoon. I was desperate to get some sort of a limit increase on the Barley card or something. And I found this police station in central Geneva. It should be a beautiful place to visit if you were normal. And I wasn't normal at the time. And I remember going into this police station, there was a young desk clerk in there, and I had my police warrant card, because you had to carry it everywhere. So I said, look, he's perfect English, educated chap, and I explained to him that we travelled from London, this and the other, there'd been a problem, lost some money, whatever, I needed to use their phone. And he looked at my warrant card and he said, Scotland Yard. So yeah, met police, and he was like, oh, come in. Took me into the police station, and I managed after about 2 hours to persuade Barley card to give me an increase of about another £200, which they weren't happy about. But because I was in the police station, I spoke to him, he verified that, you know, everything was genuine, the car hadn't been stolen, all this sort of thing. I managed to get this increase. And we sort of limped home on the fuel that we had, and we couldn't stay in hotels anymore. I had to sleep in the car one night. And it was a torture of a journey back, as you can imagine. Now, the fantasy was to go on this beautiful holiday, like I say, and have some bloody Italian food and do this, that and the other. But the reality was, I just drank too much. And drink spoils everything, doesn't it? Everything was bad about the holiday. And we tried again to do this sort of thing. Everything was spoiled by the drink. I just couldn't keep a lid on it. I had no stop button, no off switch, and that was the problem. And if you haven't got an off switch, then you're going to get into serious trouble with this. I wish years ago, when I was told by the doctor to cut it out, I didn't. I wish I should have done. I didn't cut it out. And I remember thinking, well, I didn't want to give up then, because it was such a big part of my life. It's still a big part of people's lives, you know, as they get older. And this is the problem, you can't give it up. It's hard to give it up, but you've got to restructure your life. That's the only way to get off the booze. You've got to change your life. You've got to become, in a way, a better person. And you've got to fill in the gaps, the times when you used to drink with something else. You have to find something which is more important to you than alcohol. That's the problem. And it's difficult if you can't. But I do a one-to-one mentoring service. There's a link to it in the description of the videos. If you're tough with yourself, you have a plan of action, then you can do it. Because the drink took me to the edge of life, really. I was dying in hospital in 2019 with all sorts of issues, liver failure and stuff. Now, you can get back. There is hope out there. And as soon as you start to feel these withdrawals, the hangovers are getting longer than 24 hours, you need to start reining it in a bit and try and stop, because it's going to kill you in the end. And the fantasy versus reality is probably the best way of describing alcohol, and in my view, because reality will always win, and that's the booze. Hope you enjoy these videos. If you do, please like and subscribe, and there's an ebook in the link as well, which is a handy guide to staying off the booze, because not just getting sober, it's staying sober is the key, isn't it? And I'll speak to you all very soon.